Welcome to the episode 49 of the Screw Being Unhappy podcast. I am Zuzana Mukumai, and today I am talking to Yitian Cheng. Yitian, she is a content creator who gave up a comfortable corporate life to pursue her dream. When not creating content on LinkedIn, Yitian loves the gym and reading and has her feet in different countries, China and the Netherlands. Hi, Yitian. I am so excited to have you and welcome to the show.
Hi, Susanna. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
We connected over LinkedIn. We never met in real life, but we somehow
That's right.
connected there and we kept our conversation going. And what caught my eyes is that you too, as me and most of the people who are listening, have feet in different countries. And
Mm-hmm.
also that you are willing to be uncomfortable when it comes to experimenting and finding out what your journey is, what your real self is. So can you tell us a bit more about your story and where are you right now? And not only physically, but generally as a human being.
Yes, so as you said, I have set my food in different countries. And since I was like quite young age, I like to travel. I was backpacking a lot, back in university. I was couch surfing, sleep on strangers' couch. I will probably never do it anymore, but it was like a very interesting journey, and that really opens up your comfort zone. It really, makes you see the world and like explore what are like different culture like. I think this also set one of my values as adventurous. I like to be adventurous to see, what the world can offer because I truly believe there's no one way of living. And I think a lot of times we were restrained to live one way. Only like, once you graduate, you better find a stable job. And then from stable job, you probably meet someone or whatever, or you climb the ladder from corporate. Um, is almost like a script that everyone follows. And I remember when I was in high school, I told my friend, like, oh my God, I really don't want to become an office lady. Office lady meaning like working in office. And then like back then, if you work in office, you have wear high heels and wear a little suit and all that. For me, that was really, that doesn't mean freedom. And so since high school, I was already thinking like that is not me. But somehow I went still into the script because I thought, well, that's if that's what everyone is doing, then it must be right. So I stayed in corporate for a few years until I realized there is always something missing. And I feel as if my soul was kept in prison and kept silence. And last year I decided to make the jump to pursue my own career or my own dream. Yeah.
And I didn't know you were couch surfing as well. I think we didn't chat about it in before because I am also a former couch surfer and I feel couch surfing, what it used to be back then. I think we were probably couch surfing in a similar time. It was very different than what is it now. And I also had a great experience. And when you were mentioning that adventure is one of your values, it's one of my values as well. So it was funny to hear you describing something that really resonates for me. And I really appreciate you saying that you somehow felt this life was not for you and you felt your soul was in prison, yet you continued going that way. And I think that's something lots of us relate to, that we know this is what we don't want, but we still and go and do it because that's how everyone does it. I'm curious then, when you start really digging deeper into what being yourself means and becoming yourself, how did that look like to you?
It's actually the journey starts with it's not like I wake up one day and I'm like, oh, I need to become myself. It was really a long journey, and it's a like very interesting story. I was in a Buddhist retreat like about a month ago, and the retreat was so the founder of the retreat, her name is Thich Nhat Hanh. He's very famous for his calligraphy as well. So inside the monastery, there's a lot of calligraphy. And one sentence caught my attention, which is "Be beautiful, be yourself." And when the first time I saw that, it doesn't resonate. I just, oh, it's a nice, it looks nice. And then one day when we were having breakfast and we need to have breakfast in silence, mindfully, it just came into my mind. And the thought of it, like, be beautiful, be yourself, it almost made me want to cry. Because I realized I wasn't myself all these years. I felt um, like to work in a job or to fit into a society is almost like here is a missing puzzle. And you have to twist yourself in a way to fit into that puzzle. Where I think become yourself is more like, okay, this is who I am. I'll create my own puzzle. I'll create my own game. And I think that's an even more comfortable way for me to do it. So yeah, finding myself is just actually really digging in, like really look deeply if I feel comfortable. And I think a lot of people think discomfort as somehow comfort. They're so used to discomfort that they're comfortable in it. Yeah.
This really is a journey, and just I think it was yesterday or the other day, I was thinking about how often we don't go intentionally about it, becoming our real self, but there are signs that we try to do it. And I was looking back as I was young, I always said I was kind of a black sheep of my family. I wanted to travel, I wanted to meet people from different cultures. I went on a truck from Czech Republic to Sweden and had to start speaking English when I couldn't really speak English, and all these small things. At those moments, I of course didn't see them as finding myself, but
Mm,
I feel it was in a way to find myself, and now I'm able to see bit logic in it, but then I didn't. I'm curious, why is it important to you to dig deeper and really discover what does it mean to be your real self and building that puzzles which is not somebody else's but yours, and why
mm,
other people should consider digging deeper into this and discovering more what does it mean to be your real self?
mm. Um, I think we are almost so we came to this world as a seed. And like I think for tree to grow organically, you need a tree trunk. Like it grows tree trunk and then branches. And I think becoming yourself is like this. You root it deeply, and then you see, okay, now I need to grow this trunk, and then I grow branches. And I think in modern society where people are like, I just want the branches, I just want the fruit on it, and you forget about this trunk, which is who you are, and that will root you deeply in this world, which will bring more calmness and more tranquility in your life. In a way, I feel like I never have been so calm in my life in any other phase until now, recently. So why other people should do it? Um, I think it's not like also like, oh, you should become yourself. It really start to develop this conscious where there is this ego and there's you. And the moment when you separate these two are the moment you start to become curious. Like, okay, so this voice is not really me. Then who am I? Once you start to become curious about that voice, like, like this inner voice that really comes deep within, I think that's when the journey begins. So it's not a journey that start abruptly. I think it's a long journey that you start to discover, something like really rooted in you, and then the journey starts. Yeah.
I was struggling to unmute myself. And as I'm thinking about it, as you said, it's not one abrupt moment when you wake up and say, "Oh, today I will become myself." It's not that. And in similar note, it's not that it's going to end probably anytime soon. It's a lifelong journey. And as you mentioned, you have gone to the Buddhist retreat recently. When we chatted before this podcast, you mentioned you lost lots of weight, you changed your careers, you really experiment with how you show up on LinkedIn, what are you doing? So I'm curious how this search for your real self, becoming yourself, looks in all the different areas of life and how you go about exploring it in different areas of your life.
Mm. So you mentioned the weight loss, and then I think that's also like one aspect of finding ourselves. Um, like you live in Africa where like I went to South Africa before and we did a safari. Um, and I look at all these wild animals. I saw that none of them were overweight or none of them were like underweight. They look somewhat similar to each other because there were um if you give food for those lions, none of the lion will be like, no, sorry, I don't feel I am enough, so I will refuse this food and starve myself because that's how I feel. Or some lion will be like, oh yeah, I have an emptiness in me, so I need to fill it in with food. I think human were more like we are complex animals that we have this very complex conscious, and then food is not only food anymore, is also we attach so much emotion to it. Um, it we we don't want to eat because somehow it's a way to punish ourselves, and we eat too much of it because we feel stressed, or there are many reasons why we overeat. Um, so finding, let's say, like reduce that weight is also becoming myself is, I guess it's also because once you find that you can regulate your emotion, or you can find like, I can seek refuge in just being who I am, and I don't need that food anymore. Um, it's a way to become myself as well. I think when we are trying to lose weight, it can come within. So think maybe mindfully before we eat, while we eat, I think can be a great help. For my LinkedIn and other things, yes, I'm experimenting crazily because on LinkedIn is like on any other platform, there are a lot of influencers, like thousands of people tell you what to do. And when you just come on this kind of social platforms or anywhere, you tend to follow because you don't know. And once you follow that, you feel like, oh, I think I'm again becoming just like fit in myself as one of the puzzle, even though you think you are jumping out from the puzzle. Um, so yeah, like I think the way to go is to experiment, see how you write, see how you design, and find a way that is comfortable for you to express yourself. And it should come from your heart instead of your mind. That's how I go about my career at this moment. Yeah.
It's really interesting how the synchronicity works, because when you were talking about the food just before recording of this podcast, I had a session with my client and we were talking about food and topic that is also relevant to me right now. And we were talking about being good enough, as in ourselves, and something being good enough. And I think it really relates to what you were mentioning with the animals, that they eat the right amount, they don't attach other emotions to food. And what we were discussing earlier with my client, it was about, we don't have to eat so much because our body actually doesn't need it. And that's what I have been experimenting in my life. Normally, when I would have breakfast in Zambia, unfortunately, we don't have that great choice when it comes to bread. So the most common bread is the toasted bread. So I would normally eat
Mm.
3 or 4 slices because the toasted bread doesn't feel like it's food. It's so small. But recently I realized that if I have 2 slices, it actually works for me because I don't feel too full. And often I finish my breakfast and I'm like, oh, I still feel hungry. But then I'm realizing in this structure, having the same thing on the toast and having the 2 toasts almost every day of the week, it gives me this freedom. And it's
Mhm.
really interesting how realizing, oh, this is good enough. 2 slices of bread is good enough. It supports us in other areas of our life, if it's this making sense. And even as you are talking about the LinkedIn, and it's crazy because that was, we talked about the food with my client and then we moved talking about LinkedIn. I don't know how it's, maybe it's the universe. And I am getting tired of seeing these posts. They keep popping up from different people, but they are kind of same. And it's in that vein of, I was broke or my business collapsed, but I still managed to make 7 figures in the same year. I was like, I think it happens to people, but in most of the cases, it's really not the whole story. We don't
Mhm.
know, what the person does, how many savings they had in their account, how much money their parents give them, or how many years before they worked in this. And
Exactly.
I think it has this negative impact on
Mhm.
how most of us see that the real life is, because I believe in the real life, it's really about the small steps and the continual progress to something. And there is, with few exception, no such thing as overnight success. And it
Yeah.
applies to anything, to career, to relationships, to health. So I think it's really interesting that we keep seeing that we should see it certain way and to fit ourselves in that missing puzzle piece instead of building our own puzzles, as you said.
Exactly. I think social media really amplify, um, humans are drawn to like a quick and fast way to get anywhere. Um, and so I'm originally from Beijing, from China, and we have a saying that once you want the speed, you're getting slower. Um, and I think the meaning behind it is a lot of things like this, like, oh, we see a lot of things on LinkedIn where they teach people like, I can teach you how to use AI to create 40 posts in 10 minutes. And such, such posts get attention as well. But like, is this what we come down to? I think just you type in something and then create some soulless content that maybe doesn't even attract any attention. Um, if everyone is trying to get into one way, fast way, as quick as possible, then maybe how you stand out is becoming the other way. I think it's always good to look at what majority people is doing. And if you want to stand out, do the complete opposite of that. It takes a lot of courage to just to see that, okay, you are doing something differently, to believe in yourself. But I think the outcome will be great. And knowing that you are that person who can stand out, just, be who you are. Because I think everyone can stand out just being who they are. But maybe sometimes we just don't have the courage, the braveness to do it. Once you find that in yourself, I think everyone can stand out beautifully, just being them. Yeah.
It made me think of flowers, and I love flowers. I have lots of flowers around our house. And just looking at the nature, nothing happened fast. And it feels so daunting and exciting. See, oh, I could create 40 posts in 10 minutes when normally I spend 2 hours to do 6 posts. So it sounds so exciting, but then when we look at the nature, nothing grows fast, maybe except weeds, which might be also a funny metaphor, actually, when I come to think of it.
That's right.
But it takes time, and we don't see that growth on a daily basis. But then one day we realize, oh, this tree, it has really grown. It used to be like this, now it's like this, but we don't see it on the continuous basis.
No.
And I will jump a bit now because you mentioned Beijing, that's where you come from. And it's one of the 2 cities I visited in China, and I love it. And that brings me to the question that as we all have feet in different countries, did in any way your having feet in different countries influence your sense of self and in becoming real self? And if yes, how?
It's interesting because I think it for sure influences me. I left home for many reasons. I think one of the reasons was Beijing was it's my hometown. I love it. I love every bit of it, but it also has that pressure side of it. Like everyone's so busy, everyone's like going somewhere, doing something, always, on the go. And I think part of me was escaping from it. And now that I realize that I am reading a lot of from Taoism and Buddhism. Buddhism is not originally from China, but a lot of the concept is very deeply rooted in our culture. I find, wow, actually those root, these culture, I cannot escape from that. And I feel resonate with it. And when I left home, I was like, Taoism, Buddhism, that's not cool at all. Like, yeah, like I don't want to, like that's for old people. Or, I just didn't, I didn't think it was part of me. But then it actually, like, leaving home made me realize this is me. Like a lot of wisdom, a lot of philosophy that I acquire from life is already written in sutras, in all these books, all the book from Taoism. It's very interesting. So sometimes if you go away and take distance, you have a better picture of what's going on and who you are, I guess. Yeah.
I was smiling when you said that all the wisdom you learned, it's already written. And I heard somebody saying it when it comes to personal development, nobody came with anything new since the time of Buddha. And we all keep saying the same things in different ways. And it's so interesting how we see this. Hear the same thing many times, and then when we hear it the 150th time, that's when it clicks. And this is what is
Definitely.
it about that probably we need to find, like this is the moment when I need it and I can use it, and that's when when it's useful. And it's it's really interesting how, as you mentioned, leaving your home country makes you realize that some things are really deep within you. For me, Czech Republic, it's completely different culture, completely different history, but I have realized that so many things have shaped me. And one thing that comes to my mind when I shifted my business to English, when I first started, I was doing it in Czech, and it was so difficult for me to imagine that I would coach native speakers. And I realized through some coaching that deep in me, even though I was born 1 year before the communism of 40 years ended, still my family lived in it, and it was deep in me, that belief that people from the West, like the US, England, are better than us. And that's why it was so difficult for me to coach in English, because I have strong accent, I made mistake, I'm not a native speaker, plus this kind of limiting belief. And it was in me, and that's like that became part of my journey. So I think it's really good when we start also realizing this thing and learning what we got from our cultures.
Definitely. And also, like you mentioned that, like nothing is new since the time of Buddha. I realize that sometimes for example, there is a very famous, maybe the most famous sutra in Buddhism is Heart Sutra. And like there are so many explanation of what Heart Sutra is, sentence by sentence. What it says, but empty is body, body is emptiness. I read it in Chinese, so I don't really know the English translation, but I think each phase of our life, some sentence has a different meaning. You start to get deeper into the sentence as well, even though it's just one sentence. You start to understand it from different aspect. I think that's what's beautiful about it. It doesn't have to be like so philosophical that like nobody understand. It can be a very simple sentence, like be beautiful, be yourself. And then like it can just struck you like a thunder, like wow, I wasn't like that. Maybe in give it 5 years, I have another understanding of this same saying. And yeah, like I think our culture definitely brings a lot of beauty, but like you said, it has that dark side of it as well, where we were like in China, where we just the education there is doesn't encourage you to think creatively. You're just memorize everything, and you're not being inventive because everything has already been like basically created. You just need to memorize, which is true. It's very efficient, but at the same time, like the creativity of you is being suppressed. And I lost my chance to create when I was a kid. And then one of the things I loved the most is to draw. And that wasn't considered like a skill. It's not considered useful, not as much as being a mathematician or physician. So yeah, like there's also I say the limited belief or dark side of a culture that sometimes we need to be aware of and think, am I bringing it in my day-to-day task as well?
This is really interesting. And in the episode 47, I spoke with Nikki, who she's originally from the US and then moved to Germany. And we talked about how the hustle culture in the US really is inside of the people, and that they learn to attribute the level of achievement to how good enough you are. And that was really interesting, and it feels it's something similar what you are describing, that no matter how our culture is, it can create these things in us,
Mhm.
and it takes bit of, I don't know, bit of what if courage or searching maybe to untangle this and really
Definitely.
see who we are, what do we love, and what do we really want. Yitian, if somebody is listening and they feel they are stuck and they don't even know what looking for the real self can mean, because I think many people imagine we need to have some tool or we need to go to some training, but I believe that's not what it is. So what would be your advice if somebody feels stuck and they have no idea what the real self may be for them? What could be their first step to take?
I think when we're in the stacking state, it's almost like we have this glass of water and we have dirt at the bottom, and we're constantly shaking it. It's just the water becomes muddy, it's unclear. And the first thing we need to do is to settle that water, to let the dirt just come on the bottom and the water will be clear again. And for me, that means to be mindful. And mindful doesn't mean like I have to sit on a pillow the whole day, like, to meditate. You can be mindful when you are walking. Be mindful of your body, how you move your feet, how your feet just touching the ground from your palm of the feet and then the heel. When you eat, you can be mindful as well. Like feel the structure of the food, how it smells, and then bite it like little by little, be aware. I think these are the moments that we come back to ourselves. This is how we look into ourselves. Like you said, it doesn't need to be like we have to sign up in some expensive courses. We have to find guru to tell us what to do. All these answers are in us. Sometimes, like situation happens, like your water gets muddy. That's very common. That's very often. All we need to do is just come back to ourselves. And it can be sitting meditation. You can sit on the pillow for 20 minutes, 10 minutes a day. And then within some period, you will see that clarity again. So have some faith. I think that's important. And yeah, just find that inner compass and then wipe the dirt off it. Yeah, that will be my answer.
I love it, and it sounds so simple, but it's so difficult these days. The world is full of distraction, and sometimes the hardest thing for us is to stop and really feel the hands on the table or feel our body on the chair or seeing, like really concentrating on the face of the person you are talking to.
Exactly.
And it can really make the difference. And I really appreciate you sharing this metaphor of the bottle of water, and especially saying it happens all the time that the water is muddy or it's mixed, and sometimes it takes a bit of time also if you shake the glass, right, and it doesn't become muddy immediately. It's not like you shake it and then in 1 second it's all clear. And that's sometimes what we feel we expect, like we sit 10 minutes on a pillow
Mhm.
and we expect the answers, but it takes time for
Yeah.
all the particles in the water to settle down. So I think we also need to give it time. And I think on that note, to kind of let all these things we were we have been chatting about, to let them sink and let us take the moment. I'm sure we could talk more, but let's leave it here.
Yes.
And if somebody's listening and they're like, I want to hear more of Itian, where they can find you.
So yeah, you can people can find me on LinkedIn. I'm exploring myself there basically, and they can send me a message there. So my name's Yitian Cheng, and you can find me on yeah, just type my name in and you can find me there.
And it will be in the show notes. So feel free, anybody connect with Yitian on LinkedIn and see what she's doing when it comes to becoming herself on LinkedIn. So thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you. And it was fun finding out we have more things even in common than we thought. So maybe another time we can talk more about
Yes.
couchsurfing or China, because yeah, I really loved Beijing. So there would be lots of things to cover. But thank you for being here. It was my pleasure.
Thank you for inviting me, Zuzana.